So how do you think music and fashion play a part to our current mindset? When I say those who don't own, how does music and fashion play a part into that perspective, mind frame? Perspective and mind frame.
Yeah, so music and fashion, the culture, it perpetuates a culture, habits, and a lifestyle of irresponsibility, lack of ownership.
Okay. Irresponsibility.
Right? Like it makes ignorance and irresponsibility cool. Blow money fast. No fool, but blow money slow. Right? Spend it like it's your last. Oh, I'm gonna spend it because I can't take it with me. And you're not supposed to take it with you. You're supposed to pass it down to your heirs. Right? Like all those things, like even taking ownership for our community, calling our women bitches. But then we're mad if they're not elevated, or we're mad at how these young kings out here is murdering everybody in every city, but what's the trauma their moms had? Right? So it's like all the things that, so music, culture, I'm gonna put money on your head, all these little sublines, we're getting a direct result of the seeds that we sow. And so, fashion and music, if we can change that narrative somehow and make it cool, right? Like we would literally brag about blowing money in a Gucci or Louis Vuitton store, but last name ain't Gucci. So you took your family wealth, spent it with another family, and got their family richer, and you were happy about that. And you bragged about that, right? And so it's about us, again, like not deflecting responsibility, not deflecting and being distracted or using like drugs and women and the culture and all that stuff. It's really just to numb us, man, and distract us so we ain't got to really own up to our shit. That's what a lot of it's about. It's really like, even like the sagging your pants culture, right? I was just telling somebody last night. I remember being like 26, 27. I was into real estate. I probably was a millionaire at that time. But I still had a hood mentality. And I remember I was like sagging my pants. I had like a Louis belt on. I had some 7 jeans on. I'm sagging my pants. And my man's girl was like, Jay, why you sagging your pants? Like, you're too, grown for that, all of that. I'm like, I let my pants sag so they can kiss my ass. Like, I want to show the world I don't give a fuck. I want to show them, I want to be rebellious. I want to be outlaw. And that's essentially what all it is now. All the pants sagging and all the antics, it's all a form of rebellion. But you're not really looking at like, again, it's all, so again, rebellion is in some senses, is some forms, is a way of really deflecting, where rebellion is a system, rebellion is a perspective and all that. So I think like the ownership piece of what we're talking about is kind of like, where I matured is kind of like, I don't want to be around like, okay, me, if I'm being a man, I'm really looking at this shit like outside of buying into a culture. I don't want to be a grown man or even like a teenage, young king coming up and your wife got to look at my drawers, or somebody's grandma or child got to look at my drawers. Like, that ain't, you know what I'm saying? That's not me really living up to me owning up to the king that I am. Right? And so it's about us kind of setting our standards. And so it's really, so fashion, music sets the standard that we buy into. So when Public Enemy was rocking in the 80s, the standard was rebellion and Black Power, fight the power. And then as the dope culture came into music, then it was about flossing and balling and spending money, right? And so music and fashion have set the culture for really, before we was wearing African medallions and X hats.
This is a fact.
So it's about setting the standard, man.
Okay. We got the music, fashion. So currently, you have relationships with a lot of artists, people in the industry. You have relationships with people who are in the fashion industry. What's the best way to communicate with these influencers on how to change the narrative?
That's the hard one. So many people make their living off of this narrative. Same thing politically.
Exactly.
They make their living off of pumping voting campaigns and Democrat Republicans every 4 years. They don't want to hear about true independence or freedom or owning our own politics or political equity. because it disrupts their livelihood. They make a living. They make a living off our ignorance. So I quite honestly don't. Right now will probably be a real long brainstorm session to figure out, because you're really trying to convince somebody to make less and take less and live a different or change their hustle and their livelihood and their business model to fit a higher calling, a higher standard. That's usually I've seen it. I've built with people intimately and personally about things I know and they know, and I know they know make sense, but you know, so.
Do you believe that it's actually more profitable, short term or long term, to actually make that change? Do you think there's possibilities and opportunities that allow an artist that's making millions of dollars to teach one thing that is, they know it's not the most effective, might be even toxic, completely toxic? Do you believe that there's actually more opportunities to make more income and take care of their family if they change that narrative of what they were teaching?
If there's not at least as much money, I can't say there's more to make, but I believe there's at least as much to make, or nearly as much to make, with a quote unquote positive or responsible or ownership narrative that there is with the reckless narrative. The masses, they follow the music, they follow the crowd, they follow the leaders. It's all about what we want to set the tone for, and who wants to step out first. And I've seen that to people's own response to my brand and my narrative is stepping out and moving different. And people are looking for that. They're waiting for that. And I think there's a fear that if I change, if I do different, they won't respond. They won't look at me different. And so it keeps people kind of in that low frequency, because they're scared that if I go to a higher frequency, maybe the people won't elevate with me, that are response to be different. And I think the record execs and the fashion execs and those who benefit from our ignorance, I think that they put enough money and enough influence behind keeping us at that low frequency, because quite honestly, think about it. If ownership was a cool thing in a culture, and if ownership was the standard of what was cool, right? All these ownership we talked about, owning your community, owning real estate, owning all that, then the masses own more than the top 10 to 1% would own less. 88% of the real estate in America is owned by 10% of the population. So if the mass population woke up and saw that business ownership wasn't so hard, that real estate ownership isn't so hard, that political ownership isn't so hard, then the wealthy and the powers that be would have less power. That's why ownership is so important. So they use fashion and music to keep us dumbed down into a consumer mindset and tenant mindset, because if we got an ownership mindset, there'll be less for them in their pie.